Hello, good morning. This is Jack Iyer with the INS Banker. I'm back with you, going to follow up with a video that we did yesterday that was along the lines of landlording. The title that should be Landlording, Good Landlording Tips. And I mentioned in that video about doing a rent to own contract, that I'm commonly doing those today more than ever before, because I'm looking to sell some properties off and to give the good tenants the option of owning instead of just renting. So in doing that, you need good agreements. You need good commitment out of them. They need to be trustworthy, and that you think to the best you possibly can that you've got a good long-term tenant slash owner who will act like an owner and do the things that all of us are accustomed to under owning a piece of property. So we call it a rent to own contract. And a rent to own, very commonly known out in the marketplace, but the details of it is not. And that's where you and I need to be sharp at what we're doing on rent to own contracts. It involves a lease agreement, it involves an option agreement, and involves a sales contract, real estate sales contract. So I'm going to go over these with the three of these with you today, and how I do it. Everybody's going to have a little different slant to things, maybe on how they do this, but I try to follow the standard rule of contract, and but I am going to give credit under the rental agreement. If the rents are paid on time, I commonly give them 100% credit of that payment. And I'll have a option agreement that has the amount they're paying up front to have that benefit of having rent paid as a house payoff payment, to pay that house off, just like all of us are accustomed to under standard mortgages today. They'll get that same benefit with me. Some people give just a portion, like $100 a month of their rent goes toward the contract. You could do that and be okay, help with the down payment, and then enter into a rent to own agreement, say 2 years down the road, and you have that incentive there for them to pay their rent, and they're getting credit for their down payment. And then so you start your rent to own agreement technically 2 years from now. What I have found, and I remember this way back in the early years of my real estate experience, a attorney friend told me that if I was going to have trouble with tenants, and they were not going to be good tenants, they would show up in the first 2 years of the agreement. That if they were going bad, 90 something percent, he would say, they'll do it, they'll show that in the very first 2 years of your tenancy together. I have found that to be true way more often than not. And if they are going to go bad, they typically will do it then. If they're good, solid through 2 years, you're probably going to get 3, 4, 5 years as good, solid years of collecting the payments, which is our number one goal in running our business, is we expect them to pay the rent agreed upon. And what I do is I do the option agreement normally for 2 to 3 years, and then I'll do the purchase agreement out of that, giving them more certainty of purchasing the home under the actual real estate sales contract. So I'll cover that in a minute here. But the lease agreement is going to be for the rental period in months or years. It's going to have the rental rate that you have agreed upon. The payment process, how is the rent going to be paid to you? And in my case, I do only bank drafts or auto pay from a bank savings account, a checking account, or a credit card. And I want all three of those bits of information. If they have those three accounts, I want that in my file, and that's how I'm going to get paid every month. A security deposit amount and what happens to it when the lease ends needs to be in that lease, and that can be in Alabama. We can collect 1 month's deposit of the rent for the security deposit. So you can't exceed that, but you can get one. So if you're renting for $1,000 a month, you can get an extra $1,000 in deposit. That's not your option fee. That is just the security deposit. So if they tear up anything in the house or do something that causes damage to your property, then you have that in in deposit for that for purposes such as that. It'll have the late notice and late fees in your lease. Typically today we're using commonly $100 a month for a late fee. Later than 5 days of the due date, then they incur a late fee. In our case, where we process stuff, electronically to collect our rent, we'll just have another draft to go out, after 5 days that includes that $100 fee. If it's a higher end property, it may be more than that. But whatever the security deposit is that's agreed upon will be drafted inclusive of the regular rent payment that was due, and that'll happen usually the sixth day from the due date in the lease. Okay, of course, going to have a standard lease agreement for your state. In ours, in Alabama, there is a approved lease agreement, a short form and a long form. Commonly use the short form. It's usually about 3 pages, and it's just straight to the point. And so I use a standard state lease agreement. So the main thing that the tenant must do is make sure, and today it's more and more common that where they have direct deposit, so as to make sure their money's in the bank, so that when we draft for it, it's paid. And something about it, I just feel like it is smoother. It works smoother. It's not as invasive. They become used to covering those payments. And it's not like them bringing us a check or bringing us cash money. And every time they turn that loose to us, they're thinking about, am I getting my money's worth? That kind of thing. I think the automatic payment just makes it a routine part of doing business and them living in the home and covering their household expenses like they're supposed to. So it's easier for them, more accepted by them. And I feel that way, and so I like the method of automatic payments being used. The option agreement is going to have the price of that option fee in it. Some people use 3 to 5% of the value of the property to peg a dollar amount, but we usually are rounding it off to something that's reasonable. And that's a pretty good stinger. I like $10,000 to $20,000 down in that option agreement. But you can use a percentage, 3 to 5% of the value of the property. You're going to have in your option agreement any credits that are expected from the monthly rent. and how much that is. If it's in full, then you're going to give them full credit for their rent payments. Most probably it don't do that. It's some portion of that, but I'm truly trying to create an agreement that they can feel good about, and I give 100% credit for their rental payments that are made on time as expected. Uh, your agreement's going to have how that's going to be. Option agreement would be paid, including the auto payments, or if they're going to drop it off, or are they going to put it in a box for your however you're going to collect your payments. A time frame or deadline for the option to expire will be included, and mine is often I tell them that we'll do a contract after 2 years of faithful, maybe some cases 3 years, but 2 to 3 years of faithful payments. Then they will get that contract of purchase, sales contract, and so that they can feel more certainty about longevity of their, staying with the property, that they're going to own it just as I told them that they would once they complete and finish the payments of the contract. But having these sales contract is another just certainty for the tenant to feel good about what they're doing. And so you be sure that you have. I use a receipt for the option fee as non-refundable. It states it right up front, non-refundable fee, and so you want to be sure and cover that. I have a one-page agreement for that option fee that they know if they later back out, that's not a refundable option. They're tying me up at a given price, at a specified price, and so you don't have any incremental appreciation. You're giving that up, and the tenant buyer is gaining that. So it's good to go over that with them so they can see what they're doing, what they're getting out of this rent-to-own agreement with you, if you choose to do that, like I do. And so that's a difference. In most cases, that's not that advantageous for the buyer, the tenant buyer. So with the forfeit, the option fee is forfeited if they breach the agreement in any manner, quit paying usually, then they forfeit that portion of the agreement, just as they do the payments that they were paying as rent there to own. The final piece of it is that sales contract, and so in the sales contract that I give them 2 to 3 years after the initial. Again, why do I do that? Why do I delay that? Delay that because if they're going bad, I found they go bad in the first 2 to 3 years. And so I don't want to have to argue that in court, so I delay giving him that until we get to that point. But on that agreement, we'll have the total purchase price of the home. We'll have the terms of it, including, the interest, everything that goes into making up our total payment. If I'm collecting insurance and taxes, then that will be noted, or if it's going to be paid for by the tenant buyer, then that will be noted. They'll pay that outside. Usually we do that, and we include it in the payments and make certain that the taxes are paid, the insurance is paid, so that if one of those happens, something happens, a fire or windstorm, then our mortgage gets, our payment gets made, or our balance, our credit balance gets paid off by the insurance company, because we have a financial lien position in that agreement, and so we want to make sure we have our insurance covered and make sure we have the taxes covered. Also, other items such as appliances, that may be in there can be noted there in the purchase contract. Any home inspection requirements, we'll put that in the sales contract again. Uh, Financing details on the new loan. As I just said, I'm commonly doing 11% today for the financing on it. Again, they can refinance this, pay us off, and at any point in time and get a more preferred rate that they would qualify at that time. Title insurance details. I usually will I'll address that at this time too. Also, after 2 to 3 years, even getting them. I've gotten title insurance policies for them. In some cases, I've done title scans and title and pull title reports and given those to the people. Those usually run about half or less of what the full title insurance. I do a closing at the end of the term that gives them title insurance. If it's a 12-year pay or 15-year pay that I commonly am working off of today, then when that's paid, then they have a promise to get a title insurance policy from me. Clear title and unencumbered. So, but we discussed those things at the sales contract time. And so that's pretty much, any lien that may be there, I'm going to disclose it, of course, and make note of it that I did inform them if there's any situation. And I will relate one experience with you that I've had that I will handle it differently in the future, and that is if you have a mortgage on a home and you didn't get clear title to it, this comes up. You bought the home or you bought the mortgage on the home. I would recommend immediately getting a quick claim deed on that property, or get do a quiet title action and get the deed that way. Rather than just holding that mortgage on the property and trying to manage it going forward and waiting on some proceeds like I did in one instance, trying to get some money for that property to be profitable and so it could afford to do that. Go ahead and deal with that on the front end. Get you a quick claim deed signed over to you, or a full-blown run a full-blown quiet title if you need to get the deed that way, and then do your landlord-tenant or your rent-to-own contract relationship with the tenant. Let's see. The title check is very important. I think I emphasized that to you, but you definitely want a good title check, and even when you get to this sales contract, make sure nothing has been put on your title there that would surprise you or the tenant buyer. So that pretty much wraps up all three pieces of the rent-to-own contract and the purposes of it and the steps that I do them in. 1, 2, 3. I do and the third contract comes after about 2 to 3 years. I'll complete it and give it to them again to reassure them that what was promised to them they're getting, and that we're on schedule for that 12 to 15 years, sometimes 10 years, 10, 12, 15-year payoff. And you're really doing a lot of positive things for that tenant buyer that you need to be able to emphasize. And one of the greatest is that you're giving them a locked-in price. You're giving them the appreciation is gone for you, and that's a biggie. It can be a real biggie in terms of giving that up to a tenant. and then you're giving them if you do what I do, a fixed interest rate. You can have a balloon payment if you think that's something that they're going to be eligible to qualify for. But you got incentive by getting a lower interest rate for them to go ahead and do that. And I encourage mine at any point in time to do that, that they can save some money rather than paying 11% interest. Hope you've learned something from this on rent-to-own contracts, preparing them and having them done in the proper steps. This is the way to collect full market value for your homes, get payments, and basically become the bank for the tenants. And like to be in the banking business, and so I'm tell the class that I teach on the weekends, you're welcome anytime you want to come into town and attend one of those, and you're welcome to, no charge to you, and I would love to have you in class. But this is a good methodology to get ahead of rent cost. You got that down payment. See, if the deal goes bad, you got $5,000 or $10,000 to make your way through the court system without really getting hurt. And so that's the advantage it gives you. And one main reasons that I do it is to give me a few $1,000s ahead in case I do have to deal with the activity in court. Get you that Legal Shield, though, that I gave you in the last one. I'll remember it. I think it's a great value for the money. Glad you joined us today. I hope you got something out of this arrangement, and we look forward to the next one, and see you then. But be an INS banker, as I always say, and we will wish you lots of wealth in your real estate career. Thank you.